Okay, so I'm briefly going to talk you through how to create these kind of texture fills in Adobe Illustrator, such as these, like these kind of diagonal hatchings. It's that one of the things that we occasionally need, of course, when working with vector graphics, but unfortunately the process is not amazingly intuitive, I find. You will find these kind of hatchings in swatches, so on the right hand side, that icon here, or if it's not open for you or not showing up, you can go to Window and navigate down here to swatches, and it should pop up. And as you can see, I've actually created a couple of those, so there's these diagonal hatchings and all. You can apply them to any shape that you might have drawn, and as you can see, if I manipulate that shape, the hatching kind of goes with it, and if you want to reset it, you just reapply that swatch again, you just click on that thingy and it should pop back up. Yes. One of the important things about these textures is that they have to be, or most of the time you probably want them to be seamless and continuous, so they should be tileable. I find it quite helpful for that process if you just quickly draw a rectangle. You can just either drag and drop it, pressing shift to make sure that all four sides stay the same size, to have that kind of constraint, or you can just click on the canvas and then type in any kind of values that you would like. 100 points times 100 points sounds about good. Perfect. That kind of tile just helps you to coordinate your texture that you're going to do. And then, of course, we're going to draw some kind of our hatching onto it. I want to create a vertical line hatching with some really, really bold, thick, greenish lines. Let's assume we're doing that. I'm going to set them to maybe 6 points. Looks nice. Now I want to align this line now with the top of that square. As you can see, unfortunately, my smart guides are now switched off. So you can go to View. Where do we have them? There it is, Smart Guides, Command U on a Mac. You can toggle that off and on. And there you go. There we go. It's now snapping to the top of it. And I'm going to snap it to the bottom as well. So because that way, when we are then adding that texture, or when it's starting to be tileable, we have half of that line on the top and half of it on the bottom. So obviously, assuming that tile is going to be adding onto it, it will create one full line there as well. And let's have a couple of more lines. You don't have to align them properly, because once you select all of them and you go to the top here, pressing Align, you can distribute these objects evenly. Just press on that one saying that you want the center of them distributed evenly, because that's how we set the top and the bottom one up, and that spaces them out. Now what happens, usually I use the Shape Builder tool, which is here on the left. I think it's Shift M, that's the shortcut here. And it's a really helpful tool. You can now press on it, and if you press Alt, you can see there's the icon changes to a minus, so you can cut off stuff, and you can just literally draw across it, and there we go, it's cut off. So all that excess is now gone. But what now happens, because we have a path, that line is not a shape by itself, but it's a path with a thickness applied to it. So obviously it's not going to cut off that top bit, even if we are trying. I can show you here. It's not going to cut it off, doesn't work. So what we have to do, and that might be a similar case, like for instance when I made that kind of hatching, I had to do the same thing, and I'll show you in a minute. So I'm selecting all these lines, and I go to Object, let me quickly expand, there it is. So, and I'm just going to expand it to a fill. Okay. Hope I've selected all of it properly, probably haven't. Object, expand, okay. Now we got it, yes, now it is not a line anymore. it's not a path, a vector with a thickness, but it's actually like a rectangle type of thing. So now we can select them again, take the shape builder tool, and we can cut off that excess on the top, and of course that one on the bottom, which we first need to select as well. There we go, minus. Perfect. Again, now it is tileable. If we select all of it, and there we go, and move it up, copy, so that line now looks the same as all of the others. That kind of process of expanding lines is quite important again for that kind of moment. I've had a similar thing up here, I'm just quickly showing you, where I drew these diagonal lines, which are all paths, so these are all lines, and if I'm now using that pathfinder again and I'm cutting off that excess, what happens, oops, I haven't selected it properly, there we go. So now what happens is that it creates these tiny little how you call them, there's a little piece missing because the path ends at the edge of that rectangular thingy, and the lines, the way that they stop, they are just they don't extend. So if you were to have or if you want a tileable texture, of course, then all of a sudden you're missing that kind of little piece. So again, going back, reverting what I've just done, again you are selecting these lines, go to Object, Expand, okay, there we go. Again, now we have a shape created out of it, cutting it off, and now it's actually cutting it off along that edge rather than as the path would behave. So that's one of the little things to work around if needed. Now back to that thingy. I just Command C it a little bit too much. There we go. Now my texture is actually supposed to look like this rather than having that bluish background. I just use that background to kind of guide me to understand how big my canvas is. So now I quite simply just select everything that I want to have as my texture. I open that swatches menu, and I literally just drag and drop it in here until that plus sign applies, and you drop it, and then here it is. You can double click on that icon and it opens up the texture or the pattern option, and it shows you how it looks like applied. You can rename it. Let's name it green lines. There we go. And there's actually some additional settings that you can apply as well. So you can have it that you can organize the pattern differently. You can scale it up and down. You can think about overlaps and how many copies and how many times it actually multiplies, and so on. So there's quite a few of settings that you can play around. But once you're happy, you can just click on the top here, say it's done, in case you've made any changes, and it will save it. And then here is your texture. So if we are now going to draw another rectangle or anything, and we can just apply it, and there it is. Of course, again, we can play around with that shape, reapply it in case we accidentally stretched that texture, or of course if we have slightly more difficult shapes, that's how it works. Yeah. The good thing about these swatches and these textures as well, if you are going to open up a new window or a new document and you copy paste one of these shapes into a new document, it will automatically copy paste these swatches as well. So that might be a really good strategy to eventually build up a library for your own projects, and including all the patterns and swatches that you've worked on. I hope this helps. Have fun creating your own textures.